Hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Tyler Purrier, and I'm a 3D artist with Quixel, and joining me today is Martin Krasman with the Twinmotion team. We're going to cover how to source Megascans assets using Quixel Bridge and how you can leverage those assets within Twinmotion to enhance your AEC or ArcViz creations. So let's jump right in. Here at Quixel, we are dedicated to capturing the world. We send scan teams to any number of different environments throughout the world to scan everything we can get our hands on. From the largest boulders to the smallest pebbles, we will scan and produce as many assets as possible for the Megascans library. Additionally, we not only scan elements in their natural environment, but even man-made surfaces and objects seen in everyday urban and rural areas. From food, plants, modular interiors, floors of many kinds, and much more, all readily available for you to use in your projects. The Megascans library is a digital library that houses thousands of these real-world scanned assets. We have a wide variety of not only surface materials, but 3D models, imperfections, atlases, decals, vegetation, and more. All of these assets are completely free to use in Twinmotion with your Epic Games account, and you can easily access this library using Quixel Bridge. Bridge is a standalone application that is a content management system primarily for the Megascans library. In addition to organizing the plethora of scanned assets, Bridge provides a conduit to quickly send assets to your favorite modeling or rendering software such as Unreal Engine 4. Let's take a closer look at Bridge to get you acclimated before transitioning into Twinmotion. So to download Bridge, if you don't already have it, just navigate here to the Quixel homepage at quixel.com, go up to the Products menu tab, and then go down and select Bridge. Then at this point, you can simply go down and click on the Download for Free icon. So once you have Bridge installed, be sure to log in by clicking on the account icon here in the top right and log in with your Epic Games account. Then, once you've logged in, you'll be greeted by a home page of sorts where you will see highlights to some of our latest scans added to the library. We could scroll down and see some of the new surfaces that were added, new models, new plants, even our latest collections, which we'll get to in just a moment. Then we have an area that structures the scans in groups by asset types, as well as some of the trending assets that are quite popular among users. So as you can see, this is the very beginnings of how Bridge will cleanly and clearly organize the Megascans library. Additionally, we can go to the tabs here on the left panel where we can see the overall asset categories and groupings. Say if we want to search all of the surfaces in the Megascan library, we can simply click on surfaces and it'll further break down all the different types of surfaces, all organized and easy for you to use. So I want to bring your attention to the Collections tab right down here. Let's go ahead and click that. And much like the homepage, you will see somewhat of a header style layout here for our Collections category. So collections are a group of assets we've put together to help you find assets based on a topic or theme. For example, there's a collection that's all about stone floors, dead stumps, or even wooden decorations for your ArcViz projects. Within the collections page, we even subcategorize those even further by environments, essential, and even ArcViz. Since we're working in Twinmotion today, let's go ahead and click on the ArcViz collection. Here you will see another home style page where we've then subcategorized all the different types of ArcViz materials, models, decals that you could possibly think about to use within Twinmotion. Let's scroll down to the bottom here and click on the Ultimate Wood Veneer subcategory and see if we can't find a surface that we could recommend Martin to use within Twinmotion. And for the particular scene that Martin is working on, I think this walnut veneer stands out to me as a good choice to use for the dining table, which you'll see shortly. So let's click on this tile, and once clicked, you'll see a new window pops out here from the right. Here we can view some additional information about our asset, including seeing all the different material maps that are part of our asset. One feature I really like to use is the 3D preview button right here. That way we can preview any surface or 3D model before we decide to use it. We can additionally hit the full screen option here, which lets us see this 3D asset in a much larger window. Let's go ahead and exit out of this. So in order for us to use this veneer in Twinmotion, we must first download this to our local library. To do that, let's go down here to the Download Settings tab. And then we're presented with some downloading options, one of which is the texture resolution, which I think 4K is fine, but you have the option to go to 2K or 8K respectively. There are some material presets depending on where you want to export to, but in this case, custom is fine. And then you have the different material maps here in this next section where you get to specify which material maps you want to download. Right now for Twinmotion, the only texture maps we really need are the albedo, the roughness, and the normal maps. So let's go ahead and uncheck these other 3 maps here. And I'm pretty happy to use these settings for the project, so now we can simply go down here to the bottom and click the download button. You can see we got a notification that we have successfully downloaded this asset. And once you've clicked download, you will also see a green check mark up here, which is a confirmation that this asset was purchased and is now linked to your account. Likewise, if you see a blue check mark on the tile of the asset, that indicates the asset was downloaded to your local drive. If this blue check mark was instead green, then it just means the asset was only purchased and not downloaded. We can also click on the local library tab right here in the bottom, and you'll see the latest asset that we have downloaded is right here in the top left, which of course is the walnut veneer. Martin will showcase this more in his portion of the webinar, but to import any asset into Twinmotion, we're going to first need to know where they're located on the hard drive. Fortunately, we don't have to go searching through a bunch of folders to track these down. Instead, we can simply go to the asset we want, then right-click on the tile, and you'll see a few options pop up, one of which is Go to File, so let's go ahead and select this option, and either a Windows Explorer for PC or Finder window for Mac will pop up here on screen showing you the exact address that asset is located on your hard drive. It's this address you'll need to use in order to manually import these 3 texture maps into your Twinmotion custom material. There is a plethora amount of assets that we could use inside of Twinmotion or any of your ArcViz projects to further enhance your renderings even further with the Megascans library. So thank you for joining me through this brief look at Quixel Bridge and the Megascans library. I would like to now pass on the baton to Martin, who will dive further into the juicy Twinmotion portion of the webinar you've all been waiting for. So Martin, take it away.
Thank you, Tyler. Hi everyone, my name is Martin. I'm Twinmotion Technical Marketing Specialist. Today I'm going to be presenting you how to import those assets that Tyler presented inside Twinmotion. We are going to be looking at different kind of assets, from materials to imperfection texture, or also 3D object and 3D plans. So the scene I'm going to be using is a small interior space. It's a repurposed textile factory located somewhere in Brooklyn. It consists of this living/kitchen area over here. Then we have a small bedroom on this side. And on the back, we have a small patio area where we will come a bit later. So the first thing I want to do is maybe change the wood material. Like Tyler presented me a wood veneer that looks really great. So let me just bring Bridge and we can have a look at this veneer material and download it. So this is the veneer that Tyler proposed me to use for this webinar. I already downloaded it, but let's download it again and show you the same process as Tyler presented you. So albedo, roughness, and normal map. This is all the maps I need to use inside Twinmotion. Just going to click on re-download to start downloading all the texture I need. My texture has been downloaded, so let's right-click on the thumbnail and go to Files. Here I will just copy the link over here, and now let's switch back to Twinmotion. First thing I will need to do is select my material picker and click on any material inside Twinmotion to bring up the duck materials. To create a new material, I will just click on this icon here to switch to the view of all the material of my project. I will click on this small plus icon over here to create a new blank material. Let's right away rename it Wood Veneer 01. Now I will need to load my texture. So I will come first to the more of the color. Here I will need to load the diffuse or albedo texture. So I'll click over here, click on open, and here I will just paste the link from the texture I just downloaded. I will select my albedo texture. So here, as you can see, now my material have the albedo loaded. I will do that for also the roughness. And also I will do that for the bump, which is basically the normal map. All my texture has been loaded. Now let's apply this material on this table. So it's a simple drag and drop from this dock over here, from the thumbnail directly onto my geometry over here. So as you can see, first, like the material is really top notch compared to what we had just before. Like the quality, the wood grain, the wood veneer, I can really see that it enhances quite a lot the quality of this table. Thing I want to do is just change a bit the scale so the texture match on the side. So maybe just going to 1.2. Something like that. And I just also want to have this veneer here, maybe more in the middle. So I'm going to enter the more of the scale. Let's actually put a bigger scale first. Yeah, maybe more something like that. And in the more, I'm going to the axis. And here I can play with the texture position on the x-axis or on the y-axis. I think now it starts to look great. I can start to play also with a bit of the reflection. So by default, Twinmotion, when you load a roughness texture at 50%, it's exactly the aspect, it's exactly the effect from the texture. When you go over 50%, you will basically override your roughness texture until it's completely reflective. And if you go below 50%, it's the exact opposite. Like at 0%, it's completely rough, so you don't have any reflection. And as soon as you come close to 50%, it's the effect of your texture. On the Megascan platform, there is a few imperfection texture, which can also be great on this table. I would like to have some kind of wiping mark on the table inside the reflection map. So let's go back to Bridge and see if we can find something that works in our case. So we'll exit the wood veneer. We'll come back to home. I don't need actually the wood veneer on the right. And now let's check the imperfection texture. As you can see here, we have plenty of different kind of imperfection, from dirt to fingerprint. This one, the wipe mark. I would like to use this one. So let's select this one. And here you have a preview of the different kind of wipe effect. Let's maybe download like this one. Let's start with this one. So I'm just going to click here, download settings. Don't need to have an 8K, 4K will be enough, and I just need the roughness texture. Let's click on download. Right click on the thumbnail, go to files, same thing here, I will just copy the link, switch back to Twinmotion, and here in the more of the reflection, I will switch from the roughness of my wood material to this new roughness texture. Let's see how it looks. So as you can see here, with this new roughness map, we have those kind of circular wiping mark that you can see on the right here. I think it changed a bit, it break up a bit the repetition of the roughness texture that we had previously. It had some more randomness in the reflection. think it looks great. Maybe we can find another way another one that works a bit better. Let's maybe check like maybe this one. Again, 4K, roughness, download. Here we go. Right click, go to files, copy, and then here, paste. This texture I think looks a bit better, like we have some bigger wiping mark, especially here in the middle of the table. I quite like the effect of this one. As you can see, it's a really subtle effect. As you can see here, I need to be really up close to see the effect. But it's really like the small and tiny details I would like to have in this project. So what's next? Since we talk about the imperfection texture, maybe we can add one on the wall on the right over here. Actually, just before, I just don't want the door to be opening and closing at each time I'm navigating through my project. So I'm just going to switch the trigger to off, leave them like that. So first, my wall is not supposed to be black. It's supposed to be something like that, but a bit darker, maybe a bit bluish. And I would like to raise a bit the reflection, but I want to have like a nice imperfection texture in that, not just like a pristine reflection on my material. So again, let's come back to the imperfection, not the wipe mark this time. What can we use? Not the fingerprints, maybe not the frost, maybe the rubber. Rubber might look nice in this project. So I've already been using this one for another project. Let's give this one a go. Download setting, everything is still in 4K, download. Let's check that inside Twinmotion. Here my wall material is still selected, so I'm going to the more of the reflection, open. Just going to copy this texture over here. That's it. Yeah, this is exactly the kind of effect I wanted to have. I just now play a bit with the reflection because I think it's a bit too reflective. Yeah. This one looks quite good. It's also, again, it's a subtle effect, but if I'm walking through my project, like making a walkthrough for my clients, this is the kind of really small detail that adds to the overall realism of the scene. And everything that I'm doing right now, like setting up the materials, if I want to use those materials later on for another project, for example, I can just click on this small menu over here, and I can add this material to my user library. So in the future, if I want to make the same kind of wool, but let's say in another color, it will be just a drag and drop from the user library to my scene, and I will be able to just customize the color. If I enter the user library here, at the bottom, I have my new material that I just saved inside the user library. Maybe I should have renamed it. It's not black anymore, but yeah, you get the idea. Same thing here. I could save my wood veneer into my user library. In my user library, we can create also a different folder. So you can create your own hierarchy of material and object also. We'll see that in a moment. So let's continue by importing some other materials. As you can see, the wood parquet and the brick wall are quite low resolution. So yeah, let's start with the parquet. Back to our surfaces. Let's close this. On our surfaces, actually to find it better, I will be using the collection, Archviz. And here from there, I have directly the wood veneer. Actually, yeah, I will probably be using the polished parquet inside of the wood veneer for my flooring. So inside the polished parquet, we have plenty of one available in plenty of different color, from this really clear one to this darker one over here. I would prefer something in this color. Let's check what we have below. Like the ash could be great in our project. What else do we have? We have some cedar, some oak, maybe some oak. Let's give the oak a try. So which one could we use for this project? Maybe this one. So I'm just going to click on this one. Download settings, 4K. I need the albedo. I don't need the ambient occlusion map, neither of the displacement modes, but I need the normal and the roughness. Download. Let's check it out. Go to files, copy, back inside Twinmotion. Same as I did before. Using the material picker, I can select this material and I can actually also replace the texture of this existing material. This is what I'm going to do right now. I will go to the more. Here I will load my albedo texture. Now let's load the reflection texture. Again, 50% to have the exact same effect of the texture. And finally, the normal map. Here we go. So actually, the material was really a polished parquet on bridge, but in my interior, sorry for that, in my interior I don't want to have like a polished parquet, I want to have something really rough, so I'm just going to lower the reflection. And also the scale is a bit different from the scale of my previous material, so I just need to raise a bit that. Let's check 0.8 maybe. Yeah, something like that. So as you can see, the quality is really far from what we had in the past. Material looks good. Can also, if I want, for example, to tweak a bit the material's color, I don't need to use like Photoshop to blend in another texture. I can use simply the color texture. This color will be placed overlaying the texture color. So here I can just, for example, make it a bit warmer, maybe a bit darker. Or yeah, you can just play a bit with the color of my texture with this option over here. I think this one looks great, and again, I can rename that if I want to have like a wood parquet number 1, and I can just save it to my user library for using it in another project if I want. Now let's switch to this brick wall over here. So ArcViz. Let's close this tab on the right. Clean bricks. Here we have plenty of different kind of bricks. Which one can be used? Like maybe this one. Let's see if we have something. This one looks great also. Yeah, I'm just going to stick with my first choice over here. Download setting, 4K, normal roughness, download. Let's go to files, copy this, back to Twinmotion. So let's select this brick material, just going in the more, open, loading the albedo texture. Maybe the scale is not exactly what I want, so I'm just going to maybe raise a bit that. 0.5, 0.6. I think that looks a bit better. Now let's load all the other texture, so 50% to have again the exact effect produced by this roughness texture. And after that, the normal map. Yep, not paste, sorry. Here we go. So here I have just loaded my brick texture, which look a ton better compared to like the low resolution texture that I have in the past. Right now, Twinmotion doesn't support like the height map that you can find on Quixel on the Megascan material, but it's something planned on the roadmap. So once we'll have it inside Twinmotion, it will work in a similar way to every other texture with just an option to load the texture. So I think regarding our material, it starts to look great. We improve by a lot like the quality of some of those material that we have inside our scene, like the parquet, like the most important material now in the scene looks pretty great. Now let's start to add maybe a few details. I know that on the Megascan platform there is a few flower pots that could be great on our table. And we'll also later on download some 3D plans. But yeah, let's start with some 3D objects. So I'm coming back to my ArcViz collection. Let's close my brick over here. We can start with some rustic pottery. Actually, let me come back to the home section. And here I found that the Megascan team just uploaded recently some nice 3D objects. So let's check where they are. So like Tyler presented you here, we have plenty of different kind of objects, like from those materials to those modular building facades. Let's check the 3D assets. Yeah, it's not sure if it's in the wood or clay, but let's start with the wood. Maybe we can start with importing a cutting board on our table. Maybe let's start with this one over here. When you look at the download setting of a 3D object, there is a bit more option compared to the materials. So here we have the LOD. The LOD is basically the resolution in terms of polygon of the object. As you can see, the LOD 0 is the object with the biggest resolution in terms of polygon. And here we have like the LOD 6, which have like the least amount of polygons. What we want here is like the better one. So we'll just select the LOD 0. For the texture, I'm going to stick with 4K. Material preset custom is fine. We'll just make sure we have the albedo, normal, and roughness texture checked. And here we just click on download. Let's open the file. So here, before loading the material, I will first need to import the object. It's similar process as you import your project. We just click on the import doc. We click on import, open. We'll copy paste the link over here. And I will select the myfbx file. And I'm just going to select the keep hierarchy option. Here, there is already a material inside the scene which have this name over here. So to not have my cutting board use the material of my scene, which can be maybe the brick or whatever material it is, I'm just going to use the keep both option. So my cutting board will come with its own material named default material. Let's open the scene graph over here. I will select my FBX file. As you can see, it has been imported just in the middle of my project. I'm just going to place it in the middle of my table and just move it a bit up. Now what I need to do is just simply select the material of my cutting board and load the textures. Diffuse is on. Now, roughness. And normal map. Cutting board looks nice. It's a bit like, yeah, we already had some wood below. Maybe I should have used something else. So let's maybe actually put this cutting board maybe more on this small table over here. And not this way. Let me just turn it around. Yeah, I think this cutting board might not be best on my table, so let's check something else. So all the cutting board are in wood, so maybe it's not that I want to use to add some more details. So maybe not in the wood section. Yeah, let's come back to the 3D asset, root folder, and now let's check the clay. So here we have some nice pottery that I could use in my project. So I already downloaded a couple of them, but yeah, let's download some new ones, like maybe this flower pot over here. Download settings, just making sure everything is the same as before. But basically, when you first set the option from one type of object, like for the 3D object, now that I have set up my preference, basically my download settings preferences, like I just want the LOD 0, I just want the albedo, normal, and roughness. For every future 3D object I will import in my scene, this will retrieve the same settings. So let's just click on download. Okay, so now let's import this pot inside Twinmotion. Import. Making sure I use the keep hierarchy option and make sure that I'm using the keep both option. Again, my flower pot basically import in the middle of the scene, in the middle of the Twinmotion world, and I can just move it anywhere using my gizmo like that. So, flower pot I have, let's just select the material. Let's now load the diffuse texture. Looks great. Let's load all the other texture. And the normal one. Yeah, flower pot looks great. Now let's imagine that I want to add like some actual plants inside it. So the first thing I will need to do is add some like some dirt, some ground, some earth inside it. So a trick that I'm going to use is just simply use a basic primitive, which is like a basic circle. Yeah, let's use this one, and just using the scale tool, just scale it to have something quite small, so it can fit inside our pot. Just going to make sure it's big enough until it enters the clay. Okay, so we have that. Now let's come back to Bridge and import not a 3D asset, like surfaces. I'm going to need an earth material. So let's check. We have some debris, gravel, ground. And yeah, just maybe this one looks great. It's labeled forest ground, but yeah, just want to have some basic dirt. So let's go apply that inside Twinmotion. Going to pick the materials. The material is there, just going to change the scale to have something way bigger, like that. And here again, loading roughness texture and normal map. Yeah, this one looks great. So now we have a pot, we have some earth inside, maybe it's time to grow some plants. So let's close that and let's come back to Bridge to see the different kind of plants that we have. So here on the left, I'm going to open the 3D plants. And there is quite a lot of different kind. maybe what I want is just like some houseplant. Maybe some flower, but yeah, we'll see what we can find in here. Yeah, actually flowering here. I already downloaded those two, but yeah, this one will be, I think, a bit too small. So let's. What kind of other plants can we use? Like those are really most for exterior. This one could be great, like the pink cord line. As you can see, there is like a huge amount of variety, and new plants are added all the time, new 3D objects, new materials. So the library is constantly evolving. So let's maybe check garden plants. Yeah, let's re-download this one. I've already used it in one other project, but yeah, never mind. I will just going to use it and show it again to you. So for the 3D plant, we need one extra texture, which will be the opacity texture. And I will show that just after I downloaded why we need this texture. Okay, go to file. So here we'll need to do a few extra steps. But first I'm going to import the different mesh. When you import a 3D plants like that, there is multiple variation of the mesh of the object, but all of them share the same material. So as you can see here, we have all the different variants just for the mesh. So let me just import a couple of them. I'm not going to be importing all of them, but enough so you have a better understanding. So this is the first one. Let's import second one. So I'm going back in my folder, enter the var number 2. Second variant. I would like to find like a bigger variant, like those one are quite small. Third variant is still a small one. So just going to import some of those until I find one that suits my needs, even smaller. Maybe I should start by the end, but yeah. You never know. Five, number 6. Yeah, I will definitely switch and start by the end. Maybe like the biggest one are at the end. And nope, it's even smaller. So where are the big ones? 6. Let's randomly pick one. Actually, I think that maybe these plants is just like a smaller plants. Like there is no. Let me just maybe come back to Bridge and look. Just have a better look. Yeah, it's just me. Like it's the same scale for all of them, and all the other are really small leaves. And the flowery mesh is just like those one over here. And actually, it's their scale. There is not a bigger one. So yeah, I think since we are just going to populate a flower pot, I think that will suit our needs. So let's leave our object like that. And now I will focus on the material. So let's pick the material of this first one over here and just showing you something, and after that I will switch to Photoshop. So the texture are located over here, the Atlas texture. Here we have 4 different type of texture. We have the opacity map that has been downloaded extra for this kind of 3D plant objects. This is because when you load the albedo doesn't have any opacity information. As you can see here, normally here you should have just the flower here, and here it should be empty. It should not have this geometry present. It's because the texture that I downloaded from Bridge is just a JPEG without any information of opacity. You need in Photoshop to blend both the opacity texture and the diffuse texture. So let's check it out inside Photoshop. So I just launched Photoshop. Let me just open my two textures over here. Just going to grab my opacity texture, place it on top of my albedo. What I will do here is use the selection color palette. I will select the white part. And here I'm just going to copy paste basically the white part, but of the albedo texture, which gives me this texture. It's a texture without background. In comparison, here is the albedo. The albedo doesn't have this opacity information, like there is a background. So inside Twinmotion, you can't cut, you can't load an opacity texture, an extra opacity texture. This needs to be present directly in the albedo texture that you are loading. So here I've created this texture without background. I will just save that as a PNG. And this PNG texture will have the information of the background that is not present. So now let's switch back to Twinmotion. And here, instead of loading my JPEG, I will switch to my PNG without background. And the first option I need to check is the opacity map to take into consideration that there is no background behind the leaves. And you can see the preview also on the left from when I switch to opacity mask on and off. Also right now, this texture is present only on one side, so I need to come to the settings and make sure the material is cast on two sides. So here I've been using a basic material like the Twinmotion standard material, but for plants I like to use some translucent material. So here we're going to the library, enter the materials. I will scroll to the bottom and use the translucent material. I will drag this material on top of my plants. This will replace the former material. And here I will need, again, just to load the different texture. So again, the albedo, the PNG, and the other one, like the roughness, and the normal map. By using a translucent material, you have one tiny option that could be great in some cases, which is this translucency slider, which can, it just lets the lighting come through the geometry based on the mesh itself. So it might have some nice looking results when playing with this slider, especially on those plants. So here I've set up the material. Let's just maybe rename it. Don't remember the name of the plants. So let's rename it like that. And what I will do here is that since each of the variation of this plant use the same texture, I can just now drag and drop this material onto all the geometry I've imported. I won't be actually using all the smaller one, like just the separate leaves, so I can just delete those. And here I have my flowers. Now what I can do with that is like take the time to rename them correctly. I can just also save them directly inside my user library, create a folder dedicated for them. But to gain time, what I will do today is just select them and just place them on my flower pots. Maybe they are a bit too bright, so just going to blend in a darker gray, like that, just to make it a bit less bright. So this one looks great. think that's it for this part. Now let's switch outside. Outside for this project, I've been also using some 3D plants that are not present for now, but let's check where those plants are located. It's in the 3D plants, it's on the climber, yeah. And I've been using this English Ivy, so I downloaded all the different mesh. Using the same technique as I show you, I used the opacity map inside Photoshop to create my PNG texture. And then I simply placed all those mesh in my file. And this is the look once I have finished like placing all the vegetation. So it looks way better. My interior starts to look nice with the new material, the new 2D object. My exterior starts also to look nice with those plants a bit everywhere. So we have the English ivy that is going on the roof, on my wood beam over here, on my walls, and I also added some ground plants on the side. And so this is the final look for now. I'm just going to open another Twinmotion scene, which is basically the same scene where I just spent a bit more time to set up the lighting correctly, added a few more objects, a few more plants. And let's see how it looks after spending like 1 more hour on this project. So here is the look of my project. I spent like a bit more time to set up the lighting. I've placed some camera, added some nice depth of field. And here, as you can see, we have all the Megascan plants going a bit everywhere on the project. We have all different kind of flower pots that I downloaded from Bridge, all the different kind of plants a bit everywhere inside our project. So this looks great, and same thing on the inside. If I switch to the interior, here I've added more plants, more 2D objects. And even on the table, I switched a bit the kind of object I've been using. Same for the plant, but you have like the idea of the quality really that you can bring to your interior scene. Also on the interior with all the different kind of plants that is available on the platform. So you can imagine the kind of project where you can use those assets and what it can bring in terms of quality to your render. So I think that was helpful for you. It's really like a quick starter guide on how to bring those material inside your Twinmotion scene. By the way, right now this process is a bit manual, so you have to manually import your texture, import your FBX file, and so on and so on. But currently, the Twinmotion team is working on having access to those assets directly inside Twinmotion without the need of installing Bridge and downloading those assets. So those assets, some of them, not all the Megascan assets will be available at first, but some of those assets will be available directly inside the library. And this is a new feature that will be coming in next year, Twinmotion 2021. So stay tuned for more information. And now I think it's the time for some Q&A.